Hi there, listeners, and welcome to the Curious Collective podcast, conversations designed for the veteran and first responder community to bring awareness to those holistic practices that help us live our best life. So tap into the wisdom and knowledge of our guests to heal, transform, and live as your true soulful self. Now, I am very honored to have with us today the amazing Nick, who has a business called MyndFit. Now, I found Nick, I think maybe about 4 or 5 years ago now, and on socials again, and we've stayed in contact ever since. A fellow veteran, and yeah, I just love what you're doing, and I love the concept behind everything that you're doing. So, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks for doing what you do and creating something where like-minded people can come together and talk and share and offer something for people in need if that's what they're looking for.
Absolutely. It's what it's all about. I love these conversations because, the synchronicities of life, you'll be having a conversation out there in the real world and you're like, oh, you should listen to this episode I did with Nick. He's like talks about XYZ, and
Mm.
you've sort of got a point of reference to give someone. So share with the listeners for us what it is that you're doing in this world right now.
Oh, well, I guess I was talking to a client the other day about what he's doing and being a lived experience practitioner, my frame of reference is my own life and my own experiences. So I shared with him some insights into mine, and we were talking about his why. And I said, for me, my why is to reduce the amount of unnecessary suffering that's in the world for people who want to do that. I don't want to go imposing it or forcing it on anyone. So, yeah, through my own journey, which we'll probably get into later, there was a lot of learnings. What not to do was probably the most important learnings that I had, and then yeah, thankfully took all of those lessons and applied them and grew and evolved and found myself in alignment and on that authentic path. Um, and yeah, so now we're teaching people how to think constructively. So the business is MyndFit. It's MyndFit. The My is for my mind. It's about getting people in a position where they understand that they're responsible for their happiness and health and well-being. Um, Most of us are just fall into this mindless way of living where we just outsource our happiness and need X, Y, and Z to happen in order to feel good. And so empowering is a bit of a buzzword at the moment, but it's appropriate. So we're giving people the tools and resources to increase their emotional intelligence, to learn how to self-regulate and self-manage and not be so reactive to all the challenges and adversity that we face. And yeah, so we're obviously doing healing where there's unresolved trauma. And that's very important because if you try and build on top of a foundation that's not congruent, then it's likely to topple over again in the future. So, and then the person will think that they've failed or that they're broken or whatever. So we want to make sure we do it properly. So yeah, we've just essentially built something a bit different from the typical mental health industry, I suppose, or system.
Yeah.
That's the feedback we're getting from clients, and instead of taking a clinical approach to it, we're actually meeting people where they are. When I'm training up a new practitioner, I'll speak to them firstly of know all the theory and master all the techniques, but when you come into contact with another human soul, just be another human soul. So that rapport, that warmth, that love, that's all. We don't need to sit there and talk about what happened in Iraq or talk about what happened in childhood or try and point the blame at anyone or throw anyone else under the bus. Life happens to all of us to some degree, and we can sit there and right, what do I need to do with this, and what do I get to do with this? So that's in a nutshell, just helping people to
Nick,
think better.
You are a breath of fresh air, and you and your team and what you are creating from the moment I found you has lit me up. And as you talk, I like just feel this expansion through my heart because I'm like, this is what humanity needs. This like actual practical, individualized, connected nurturing is
Mhm.
like, people want to come in because they feel seen and heard, and they want to tell all their friends because of the way they felt when they came in. So thank you so much for what you're doing down there.
No worries, and it's interesting you say that because word of mouth has been out. We haven't spent a dollar on advertising. It's all just been word of mouth, and um, if timing's so important in doing this work. If you try and lead a horse to water and make it drink, it's going to create an aversion to it, and it's going to take them a lot longer to come back around to doing the work that's so important. So,
Mm.
gentle, we talk to clients about having a gentle awareness of themselves, and I think it's also refreshing for clients to, without the clinical approach, having the Buddhist approach, Stoic philosophy approach.
Mm.
It just seems to resonate with them. It's so simple. It's so um, yeah. It's just gentle.
I love the word that you used before, congruence. Like, I feel like that's not used enough. We use the word alignment, yes, because that's true too. But to have that congruence with what you're actually doing, as opposed to like day to day life, is so important.
Something we offer people as well is to so anyone can benefit from the work that we're doing. We have a framework. Obviously, we have a couple of programs. We've got a initial 12-week or 12-month. My partner Em, she's a mytherapist, and she's done mood, food, and nervous system stuff. So she's coming on board as more that holistic health, because it's not only our belief system that dictates how we think and feel. It's lots of other, the mind and body connection. Um, so yeah, we offer the clients waking up in the morning, and instead of smashing the alarm and snooze and grabbing a coffee or stimulating, um, just to just to become integrated, the mind, body, soul. You've gone through this 8 hour in general process where you're in this unconscious plane, and it all sort of pulls apart as it needs to, and then it comes back together in the morning. And if you don't actually reintegrate it all, you're not going to be very present and in a position to make these really important executive decisions that we
Mm.
need to make throughout the day.
I like that you also there mentioned, that integration process to be present. I feel like so many people are just going through the motions in life, being busy without that presence. So that's kind of one of the things that, and you mentioned before, reactive instead of, just responding to what's coming up.
Yeah, life only happens in the here and now. That's potentially going to happen in the
Mm.
future, or it happens to the best of your recollection, which is usually not very accurate anyway, just based on all the lenses and filters that you're looking at it through.
Mm.
So, yeah, it's about there's talk about depression stems from the past and anxiety stems from the future, but the past and the future don't actually exist. So we're only suffering our memory of what occurred and our imagination of what may have occurred. So that memory and the imagination are in the mind or the brain. So we're just trying to cut through all the unnecessary stuff and just come back to the root cause. And if you're not proactively training and conditioning your mind to stay present and to function optimally and well and create we talk about teaching people to have an emotional response that's in proportion to what they're experiencing. So creating the right chemical or the right amount of the right chemical in the right situation. And that only comes through training the mind in a certain way. So most people are overreacting or underreacting sometimes. So teaching people about suffering, and it's necessary sometimes and it's unnecessary sometimes, but if it's necessary, sit with it and just be
Mm.
sad. Don't be sad about being sad or angry about being angry.
Like
You can,
Sadness in the movie Inside Out, where she had to feel the
yeah,
sadness in order to
what a
shift through
movie.
that.
What a
Yeah.
great movie. So, if we're having a reaction to our own emotional experience, that's just going to compound it and deepen it. And
Mm.
I'm a card-carrying member of that club. Of being there and got the T-shirt many years ago. So, um, oh, it's when I offer it to someone that you can be at peace with being sad, or you can be at peace with being angry, you can be at peace with whatever emotional state you're in. They, they don't quite get it for a while until it sort of lands, and they go, ah, right, okay, that sounds nice.
And I know that there's so many different components of the work that you do. You've just given me a beautiful tour again through your serious space that you've got down there in Melbourne. So you've got a face-to-face, you offer the online work, and also you've got an amazing podcast that I've listened to many episodes of as well. So did you want to talk just a little bit into those before we hear about your path to where you got to?
Yeah, I guess so. So we do have the headquarters in Mornington, down on the Mornington Peninsula, south of Melbourne. We've got the 40 acres up near Agnes Water, so we're looking at trying to turn that into a retreat space. Um, yeah, we've got, so we have people present in person here. We at headquarters where I am this week. The online sessions, we have clients all around the world. So Boston, we just had someone from New Zealand um,
I
coming
love
aboard
that you offer
yesterday.
connection sessions too. Like I get into my email, hey guys, we're dropping on. This is the topic. Bring any questions that you've got. Like that to me is one of my top values. I'm like, yes.
Well, we're trying to create a community as well, a sangha, just a like-minded people where they can all come together. And I'm not Buddhist. I still drink alcohol and eat meat on occasion, but the Buddhist philosophies and
Mm.
everything.
Peaceful.
So yeah, it's just the source of all suffering is attachment and ignorance. So it's just when you help people in an understanding that as soon as they're clinging and desiring for things to be different to how they are, they're they're going to be outsourcing their happiness. And our biggest feedback is, why aren't we teaching this to kids? So we're now running an adolescent program.
Yes.
Yeah, we've heard the demand and we resisted it for a while, and until we sat with it and
Mm.
felt into it and then figured out a way to do it. Where we don't do couples counselling, but we have a lot of couples coming to us and we work with them individually, but now we're exploring doing a couples program where it won't be couples counselling. It'll just be treating the relationship as an entity, and within that entity there is inner conflict. And so how can that
Mm.
inner conflict be resolved and peace be created?
Geez, I love
Um,
that. And this is a thing I feel is happening in the world right now is everyone's trying to sort of fix each other or helper
mm,
syndrome. It's like, if we all just concentrate on ourselves and our own inner journey and find that balance and peace within ourselves, then those relationships around us will become clearer.
well, what we offer to clients asking for couples counselling is that the health of a relationship is determined by the health of the two individuals co-creating it. So if you sort your shit out and they sort their shit out, and you know you primarily are in this state where you are present and you are in your heart space instead of your ego and your neurosis, and the the biggest one we see people, the trap most people fall into, is getting into the reality of what could, should, or would be happening, or preferably be happening, instead of just being in the reality of what is.
Mm.
um, I had a client the other day talking about he had quite a morning where there was one thing after the other, and he didn't manage each moment or himself in each moment. So by the time he got to the fourth one, the fridge was open, and his the narrative or the story that he created around it was, fuck's sake, who opened this fridge, and who left the fridge open? Went looking for someone to blame, because
Yeah.
he was in suffering, and so he was projecting that. And I said, what's the reality? And he said, "Oh, someone left the fridge." No, what's the reality? And he kept going to someone, someone, someone. It took us a few minutes, and he finally surrendered and said, "The fridge was open." I said, okay, now what can you do? And you could hear his ego just, it was like flicking holy water on it. It was like, and it said, close the door. I said, that's all. That's as simple as it can be.
Mm.
All the rest of it is unnecessary. It's like,
Unraveled.
it's so simple. So yeah, we're offering it to couples and kids, and we're doing corporate training workshops now. So we're going into, especially after COVID, there's so much disconnect. We're going out on site with trades.
Oh, wow. I
And
love that. I know the mining industry needs people like you in it.
well, interesting, because we went up to Cloncurry and worked with Ernest Henry mine, but owned by Evolution Mining, and yeah, we spent a whole week with their management. So we went in there, ran 2 workshops with 20 of their managements, and then had one-on-one sessions after them. And it was so interesting because there's a general rule of thumb: the higher the IQ, the lower the EQ. And so these high EQ people, engineers, don't have, just by nature, that emotional intelligence. And all the research is showing that if the IQ is not underpinned by EQ, then it becomes redundant and can actually cause harm. So they don't know how to manage their colleagues or their staff or their relationships. So all these very smart people get in the room and let's build this thing. And on the surface, it's great, but the dynamic of it was horrendous. It was so toxic.
Yeah, wow. That would be really fascinating work. I've observed that too with the IQ, EQ thing. It's in my 13-year-old son, ridiculously intelligent. I've constantly got to be putting him into his body, like, all right, what are we feeling? Where is it? How do
Yeah, they're not great self-regulators. And so when they don't have a lot of self-awareness and can't self-regulate, then they don't have that social awareness and that relationship management ability, which are sort of the 4 parts of EQ. And I remember this one guy up there, I said, in one of the workshops, I said, being right isn't more important than how people feel. And I don't know, I just dropped that in a meditation I was doing with them. And then he came in for his one-on-one session, and he's 65 years old, and he said, I've done billions of these things all over the world, and I just turn up and generally switch off. He said, but you actually had me for 3.5 hours. And he said, and you've I don't know what to do. You've broken me. I said, oh, in what way? He said, well, that one thing you said, I said, I feel like an iceberg, and you've cracked the iceberg. And I said, well, I didn't. That resonated with you on such a level that you allowed yourself to crack. And this grown man was crying. He said, I've got to go home to my wife and just apologise profusely for,
man.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, I just felt that through my whole body.
I had to ask him if I could record it because it was such a profound shift for him, and it just landed so beautifully for him. So
how potent! I love that.
Yeah,
And that's you were the person that needed to be there at that time, and that was what he needed to hear.
yeah.
And I find that even with like your podcast, my podcast, sometimes when you're listening to one, I listened to one about forgiveness a couple of months ago. One line in that podcast had me in tears. I was like sobbing for hours. So, it presents to you when you need to hear it. So be aware and open to hearing it.
Yeah, and listen, but not on that intellectual level. Just allowed. I listen to a lot of Ram Dass podcasts, and it'll take me a week just to listen to one podcast sometimes, just because I need to pause it and sit with this one thing for a while and just contemplate it and let it move where it needs to move.
That. So, oh my goodness, there's been so much gold come out of everything you've already said. So this powerful work that you're doing these days, what brought you to this point? Like, what was your journey to find where you are right now?
Well,
you're like, where do I start?
Yeah, it depends what lens you want to do. Obviously, I read this quote from Ram Dass this morning. I'll just toss it out there for you if you're okay for me to do that. Yeah. So it said, you took birth here because you had certain work to do. This is your curriculum. It's not an error where you are now. With all your neurosis and your problems, you're sitting in just the right place. So on a metaphysical level, what led me here was all of the past lives, if you want to look at it that way. On this plane, what brought me here was a biological father who was undiagnosed manic depressive and self-medicating with drugs and alcohol, and causing a lot of harm around him. Moving house a lot, and go to lots of different schools. So, creating insecurities on that front, bullying, then an amazing gift. This guy came into my life just for a few years, and he was my way of going in the military. So I ended up Army Reserves, and then going full time, and then blowing my knee out 2 days before going to East Timor, or before the rest of the regiment shipped out to East Timor. So that was a gift, and then the sexualized violence, so a lot of bastardization and bullying in the army. That was another experience I needed to go through. And then come into contact with DVA, just getting chewed up and spat out by that machine. That was the catalyst, I suppose. So after after I got discharged, I spent 8 years spiraling, hit rock bottom, because that version of me didn't have the skills to process properly, and to sit back from it a little bit and observe what was going on, and do the work that I could do now. So so spiraled all the way down, severe depression, suicidal, agoraphobia. I literally couldn't open the door of the front door to go outside and check the letterbox. The anxiety, it's amazing, like how powerful the mind-body connection is. The mind literally disabled the body and prevented my arm from turning the knob to go outside.
That blows my mind.
And well, thankfully it blew my mind in that moment as well. So there I'm just trying to open this fucking door, and I'm like, what? I've got fine motor skills, my hands and arms work, and then had this epiphany, and my mind literally blew, and I was like, oh my God, this is my mind. This is how powerful my mind is, and it's not working well. Well, it's working well in a way that it's keeping me safe from all the perceived threats that are out there. But there's no actual threats. So, having that very intimate relationship with anxiety to that depth and degree, and depression to that depth and degree, just gave me so much insight to then be in a position to help others. So I guess that's the big difference in the work that we're doing, is that that's that non-clinical approach. It's that I've been there, I've got the t-shirt, I know where you are, I know what this is what it is. So you can either run away from it, or we can lean into it.
Or lean in, yes. So how did you then take those next steps? What was the thing that you found that worked for you?
I had to ask for help. That was the first one. So no one can help you unless you ask for help.
Yeah, big one.
Yeah, so I had to put my hand up. Thankfully, I found a practitioner. So their primary modality was CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy. But the best thing they did for me was recognise what I could do, and they just created a space and I did most of the work. They recognized that I had something within me. I had a mind that was working in a certain way, and they handed me some tools and resources and drip fed me some stuff, but they weren't really hands on. They were sort of, they understood what I could do. So yeah, I went through this metanoia process. It literally means to have a psychological breakdown and then rebuild, but it's not a breakdown in terms of straitjacket and, you know, mental ward. It's a literal breaking down, because what was working wasn't working, and what I had wasn't working. So I needed to let all of that break and then not even rebuild. I had to build something. I had to construct something that was more just healthier. I had to construct something that was healthier than what was.
And some grounded foundations to put that on.
Yeah, definitely. So did that. Did my work, and then went and studied, and then just why I just opened up my own business. No idea what I was doing. That was 13 years ago, and then there's just been a lot of trial and error and
Following the
figuring
path.
things out. Yeah, and just trusting, just turning up. I just kept turning up
and trusting. I love that.
Yeah, well, anxiety can only exist in the absence of trust. So I'd been in that state of anxiety, unnecessary anxiety, for such a long time that when I constructed this version of me, it was based on one of those foundations. Was I have the skills and the tools and the resources to manage whatever comes into my existence. So it's a far more philosophical belief system now. It's not black and white beliefs. It's not I am this or I am that. It's just I am. And I am includes that I fuck it up royally sometimes, and I make lots of mistakes,
and that's
it also
okay.
includes that I knock things out of the park, and you know, babies are in existence because of the work that I've done. So
Nick, I could listen to you all day. This is like pure gold. Thank you. So when along your path, did you find meditation?
That was the final piece of the jigsaw puzzle. So my business was called State of Mind Health. I was just sort of doing one-on-one sessions and come back next week. Then I went through a divorce. Went and lived in Thailand for 3 months, went to Bhutan and Cambodia, and then went and did a Vipassana meditation retreat, a 10-day silent retreat. And that was it for me. It was just like clunk and penny dropped. And then I discarded, I looked at all my clients, and I created 2 lists. Who do I love working with and who don't I love working with? And there's no judgment in that. It was just feeling into it. And I don't love working with list was bigger. And I realized it was because they wanted me to fix them. They were turning up and they had these expectations that I'm paying you to fix me. And it was very transactional. And I just felt that wasn't working for me. And I realized it was really interesting as well that I was actually enabling them to stay in this cycle where they'd come in, get things off their chest, I'd feel better, but nothing fundamentally changed. So they'd go back out into the world with the same operating system, get knocked around a bit, and come back and go, oh, you know, I need help again. And it just dawned on me, I didn't want to be part of that. So I restructured the business. Spent ages creating a framework, and then programs and meditation became a part of that. But it's not even teaching people how to meditate. It's about teaching them to live a meditative life. So many people will do their meditative practice in the morning, and they'll tick that box, but then they'll get up and they'll mindlessly just go about their day, react. So it's teaching people to observe all the sensations and all the stimulus in that meditation practice. But then when you open your eyes and get off the mat, continue to observe. And that actually reduces your need to have that meditative practice, because you're doing it 16 hours a day. So,
and you know that I love that last part, because I've found that with my children, right? sitting and doing Lego is meditation. Them swinging with their eyes shut at the park on the swing is meditation. It comes in so many different forms.
The biggest, I ask clients, what's the biggest source of stimulus in your life? And it's very typical for them to say, my boss, or my kids, or my wife, or my husband, or this or that. It's always something out there. And I've said, that's all stimulating, but you are the biggest source of stimulus in your life. So you can become the I behind the I, the E-way behind the capital I. You can be the conscious awareness behind the constructive Nick or Dave or Sonia or whoever you are. And you can, so I observe me all day. I'm listening to what I'm saying as I'm saying it. Where am I? Not only where's where's the body, but where's the mind? Where am I right now? And am I here with you right now? How long have I been speaking? Have I answered your question? Am I going off on a tangent, or am I saying things consciously and deliberately and intentionally?
I'm going to listen to this podcast straight after I finish and like write down all the things that I've been like, got to write that down. I personally have gotten so much out of this. So I know that the listeners will as well. So my final question to you is, if people are interested in delving into more of this daily observation of self and staying present and, you know, looking at suffering as perhaps something that is good and bad and just is, what is your advice for them, like those people just starting out and just peeping in that door?
You can't outsource it. You've got to be prepared to take the blindfold off and deal with everything that is. We call it doing the work, and your primary job is to do the work on a daily basis. And it's okay if you're not prepared to do that, but you also get the consequences of that inaction. So if you're prepared to turn up every day, and it's hard initially, but then it becomes easier. It's an everyday thing. So it's really sitting, change occurs when the pain of staying where we are becomes greater than the pain involved in moving. So it's not until the water's hot enough that you're going to get out and run across the broken glass. And so it's about choose your hard, basically, the hard path that gets easier or the hard path that gets harder. And either way is okay. It's just you've got to accept what comes with both of them. So yeah, if there's some part of you that's resonating and going, oh, that sounds interesting or whatever, you've got to honor that. You've got to explore that and see what exists within that.
I love that. Explore it, lean in, get curious.
You can't succeed or fail. It's too black and white. It's nonsensical. You turn up and you just explore and then you play with it. This is a game. You get to play with it. You get to be playful with it. I talk to clients all the time about take life seriously, but don't do it seriously.
Oh, I love that too. So many golden quotes out of this. How am I going to pick one?
Juggle them and see which one falls first.
I love that element of playfulness that you've just added in. And I know me in the work I do with the chakra system is like playfulness sits within the sacral, which is all about flow in life. So if you're not being playful, there's too much rigidity there. And how can you create spaciousness when there's so much rigidity?
Buddhism is called the middle way or the middle path, and it's not too heavy and it's not too light. It's a spectrum. You can move up and down when it's necessary or appropriate. So sometimes we do need to be serious and sit in the heaviness of things. But if you sit in there too long, it becomes a chore and draining and hard work. So I had a client the other day say his partner said that she hadn't enjoyed intimacy with him for 20 years. And he, without any thinking, he just threw himself under the bus playfully and said, oh, yeah, that's because I won't go into it. But this thing that could have potentially derailed him really quickly, his ego didn't get activated in that moment. He sat in that space and just played around with it. And that opened up this beautiful space for them to have this deep and important conversation. So
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, so many good conversations that you get to be a part of in the
I,
work that
I'm
you're
a,
doing. It's so rewarding for you to be doing the work that you're doing.
I get a front row seats to all these amazing journeys. So I'm very privileged.
Yes, absolutely. And geez, thank you so much, Nick, for the work that you and your team are doing out there in this world, and keep shining bright and passing your wisdom on, because I'm so grateful to have had you on this podcast, and I'm sure you'll be back.
I hope so. Thank you, and love to have you on ours and learn more about what you're doing and how you're helping the world. So we'll get you on the Woke Blokes podcast one day.
Yes, all links to all the work that Nick does will be in the text of anywhere that this podcast is. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Katie out.